Welcome to the webinar, Parts eCommerce and Megatrend Impacts on Aftermarket Parts Sale, hosted by Mize. I am Michael Blumberg, Chief Marketing Officer at Mize, and I will be your moderator for this webinar. Today's webinar is brought to you by Mize. Mize was recently named a major player in the IDC MarketScape report for service parts management. The webinar agenda includes a discussion on parts e-commerce and Megatrend Impacts by Ted Fellows, President of Fellows Research, and Simplifying Parts E-commerce to Drive Sales by Eric Marlan, Senior Product Manager at Mize. First, I want to give you some background on the context of this webinar and help you understand why we believe parts e-commerce and Megatrend Impacts is important to all industries. So by way of background, we know that manufacturers generate a significant portion of revenue and profits from aftermarket parts sales. Also, the gross margins on aftermarket parts sales are typically 2.5 times higher than that of the gross margins on product sales. The megatrend trends that Ted will be sharing with you today have a disruptive impact on OEM parts sales. So one of the objectives of this presentation and this webinar is to equip you with the knowledge so you can thrive in light of these trends. Lastly, parts e-commerce will play a critical role in fueling the growth and profitability of manufacturers' aftermarket business strategies. Ted's background is in the automotive aftermarket. We believe that what's happening in the automotive aftermarket, it mirrors trends that are happening in adjacent industries. And the automotive aftermarket is quite large, so we want to share with you a little bit about the magnitude of that market. The automotive and medium and heavy truck aftermarket in North America represents a $418 billion industry, and it's growing at 3 to 3.5% per year. Within the retail part of this industry, in the retail automotive aftermarket in North America, e-commerce sales account for over $16 billion, and those sales are growing at 14% to 16% per year. If we add automotive wholesale aftermarket e-commerce sales to this, we find that the market grows by a factor of 3 to 5 times is what the total market is when we add in both the wholesale and the retail. Also, more than $150 billion in auto parts are sold through channels that are influenced by digital. They're not necessarily buying through e-commerce, but digital platforms are influencing the sale of those parts. This number will grow to over $160 billion in just a couple years. So that's from a number of different research sources. Now I'd like to introduce you to Ted Fellows, the founder and president of Fellows Research. He is an advisor to firms investing in repair and supply chain digital solutions, boosting OEM parts trade and productivity. Ted has 30 years of experience in general management, product management, and business development for service parts solutions in automotive and adjacent industries. Ted?
Thank you, Michael, for your generous introduction. And welcome and good afternoon to everyone. And my special thanks to Mize for inviting me to speak today. Parts e-commerce is reshaping the automotive service sector, the service parts sector. Simultaneously, megatrends are on track to revolutionize maintenance and repair. Today, we will focus on the intersection of OEM parts e-commerce and the impact of these megatrends, primarily from the perspective of parts sold by OEMs and their dealer networks. Associated with this webinar are 3 guest blogs that I've authored that Mize has posted and which provide context and fill in some holes as we move swiftly through this timely but complex topic. So here's the agenda. In this presentation, we will cover an intro to parts e-commerce in terms of its benefits, market size, and how it actually works for replacement parts, which is different than e-commerce for other items. Next, we'll drill into part specification and its critical significance to parts e-commerce. After covering both continuous and disruptive parts e-commerce innovations, We'll review a few megatrends that are relevant. And finally, we'll wrap up with conclusions and recommendations. While I'll focus on the automotive sector and North America, as time allows, I will identify significant differences for off-highway vehicles, equipment for Europe, and other sectors not directly covered. So what's in it for you, the listener? Parts e-commerce warrants our attention because it benefits OEMs, their dealer networks, and service parts buyers in the following ways. OEMs and dealers sell more parts as a result of e-commerce. They achieve greater market share relative to what would have been competing against aftermarket and salvage parts. OEMs and dealers reduce expensive and disruptive parts returns. E-commerce boosts dealer parts department staff productivity substantially, and it enables and facilitates powerful OEM programs that could not otherwise practically exist. And it boosts the satisfaction of shops and vehicle owners. Parts buyers want and expect e-commerce. Recently, research I've conducted revealed that US car dealers are on track to sell nearly 7 billion in parts online in 2020. But that success is distributed unevenly, and it's not simple. I track 4 separate major market segments and 5 distinct classes of e-commerce platforms. As with all revolutions, there will be winners and losers. Today, we outline a path, perhaps your path to success in parts e-commerce. So this is the flow diagram slide. That's the first of 2 diagrams I'll throw at you. Let's take a closer look at the how of parts e-commerce. This flow diagram is for a portal, and with small changes, could also depict other parts e-commerce types, including dealer parts websites, marketplaces, and OEM websites. Now we'll follow the diagram's red boxes and red lines. First, parts buyers must specify the part numbers. Note, specification, whether by web parts catalog, OEM catalog, or automated fitment validation widget, is critical so that only parts that fit a specific vehicle or equipment are ordered. In automotive, we often say VIN-specific parts. For non-automotive, substitute serial number for VIN. And then note the 2 chains of boxes in black that go down the slide. These are a partial set of additional key capabilities that parts e-commerce facilitates or even enables. Part specification over time. So this is the second of 2 diagrams. And the point here is that a crucial and absolutely essential prerequisite to OEM parts e-commerce is the accurate specification of part numbers, and particularly OEM part numbers. So let's step back and look at this diagram, which compares the difficulty and complexity of OEM part specification. That is the process of identifying the correct full part number to the actual performance of part staff at dealerships performing part number specifications over the decades. Amazingly, OEM part specification improves year to year despite rising challenges. Let me call out 2 specific thoughts. First, growing OEM data and catalog complexity. So you'll see the blue curve rising from the diagram's lower left. For example, up to nearly an order of magnitude more active service parts SKUs exist now as compared to several decades ago from an OEM to OEM basis. And an even bigger growth has occurred in vehicle configurations and options. So things have gotten more difficult. And the second line, we have a falling number of errors, training effort, time to do the lookup. So you see the green curve that falls from the upper left. And what this is saying is that the experience and training is dramatically down in order to specify parts. Speed to do the specification is up tremendously, and there are far fewer errors. And this is due to advances in EPCs and equally important, improved parts catalog authoring by OEMs and their technology partners. Parts specification is advancing to where buyers who are not experts in OEMs' parts catalogs and data can specify parts accurately and comfortably, which in turn is what enables parts e-commerce. Okay, so parts specification over time, my roadmap slide. Let's cover a few recent and emerging specification improvements that are particularly helpful to parts e-commerce. First, leveraging service and warranty operations data and documents. So I'd ask you to close your eyes and imagine that there's a parts buyer selecting, rather than directly selecting the parts, selecting a service operation or a warranty operation. Then the e-commerce application returns a set of part types, which the e-commerce application then, via an automated fitment tool, converts to VIN-specific part numbers automatically. That is, you end up with a kit of part numbers for all needed parts and ones that precisely fit that vehicle or equipment. And this is all without users having to directly specify the individual parts. So this is sort of a breakthrough capability that's emerging. We also have an increased ability to do good, better, best for multi-brand OEMs. So General Motors might have the GM branded parts, but also AC Delco, and they've got multiple lines within that. So second line or substitute parts are automatically presented with the same fitment of primary OEM part numbers. So you could have value, market value parts, value line, heavy duty, performance, remanufactured, and other classes, giving the OEM and dealer an opportunity to sell more OEM parts across different performance and price profiles. And then finally, what I think is most interesting in this roadmap is predictive analytics, alerting the buyer and the seller to new opportunities in specifying parts. So let me give you the first example. If you entered a vehicle into an e-commerce solution and it said for that vehicle, the most common repairs for that vehicle for this time of year, for this region, are these 40 service procedures. And if you select any one of them, you get the full set or kit of parts. And then the other idea behind predictive analytics, you could have a parts order assembled by the buyer, and then the e-commerce software using predictive analytics going through and identifying parts that should also be in that order given the parts that have been selected. So this might be a mandatory part related to warranty. If you change a part, you must have another change, or even more cleverly noticing that if there's a hood, where are the fasteners? So additional and special capabilities. In the previous slide, we covered new approaches to parts specification that makes parts e-commerce work in a wider range of cases. Now let's consider what disruptive innovations come with parts e-commerce and the business improvements that delivers. So in addition to and separate from the continuous type improvements, some of which we covered in the previous slide, parts e-commerce can deliver the following disruptive innovations, so that were not otherwise possible. So let's start with OEM pricing programs built right into the e-commerce. The first of these that I'm going to mention, and there's more than I have here, dynamic pricing. So for example, General Motors today, of the roughly 500,000 active SKUs that they have, nearly 100,000 of them do not have a static price. The OEM is able to control the MSRP on the fly depending on a variety of information. Then there's price matching, which is popular in automotive, so that an OEM part can be partially matched on price or fully right there in the e-commerce, generating substantial additional volume. National account type pricing could be implemented. The second category of disruptive changes is parts ordering can now be 24/7. As the dealership is often not open the same number of hours and days that the fleets are operating, that the independent repairers are operating. And finally, I think perhaps the most significant and the trickiest element that's a disruptive change that's a bit counterintuitive. A lot of folks, when they first implement parts e-commerce, think that they can eliminate all the human touches. They can just simply specify an order, shoot it over, have it go into the ERP and place the order, eliminating the collaboration, the human review. But unlike e-commerce for ordering, I guess, paper for your printer, ink for your printer, for replacement OEM parts, this is unwise. You can drop the time spent in effectively collaborating on the phone now by 70% because the buyer and seller review only exceptions and then get on to missing parts and delivery timing and special issues. But you can't completely shortcut the collaboration and drive it to zero, skip over it, at least not universally at initial implementation. Otherwise, things can go very badly. Collaboration not only saves time, it can actually boost sales and improve buyer satisfaction. So this takes us to our megatrends. And the first slide's got the three biggest ones that we'll cover. We're going to start with connected vehicle, which is effectively IoT or Internet of Things for vehicles, or it could be for equipment. It's a bright spot. This is really the brightest spot in terms of megatrends for OEMs and their dealer networks. Increasingly, a proliferation of sensors and computing power allows vehicles and heavy equipment to flag potential problems before there's actually a failure, before the idiot light in your dashboard could even turn on, and it now can transmit that data to the OEM. The OEM can analyze the diagnostic codes and sensor data, and then direct the vehicle to an authorized service point and ensure that the parts that are likely to be needed are also there. And that's an important additional process. So drivers have a tendency to go where their vehicle directs them. Over 60% or approximately 60% of dealers will follow their vehicle's guidance to drive to an authorized repairer according to a McKinsey study. So they ran a study that said if your car said there was a problem and that you should drive it to this dealer right now, 60% of drivers would do that. And then in working on an article I was writing, Hyundai told me that this percentage, 60%, climbs dramatically when the OEM also concurrently calls or texts the vehicle's driver or owner to alert them to the issue and to schedule an appointment. So the next thought is with artificial intelligence and machine learning, service operations and part sets can be associated with particular diagnostic and sensor readings. So imagine this scenario. The vehicle to be serviced is at a fleet maintenance center. An e-commerce order from the fleet to a dealer is opened, and it automatically links to the OEM. And then when it sees that there's previously been some information from the connected vehicle or the IoT, it pulls down the vehicle sensor data, pre-populates a wholesale OEM parts e-commerce order, which is just stunning. The runway for parts e-commerce disruptive, innovative capabilities goes on in terms of what connected vehicle and IoT can do for parts and service. Okay, next slide. No, excuse me. Go back. I'm sorry, I misspoke. So that first one took a while. So the second one I'll cover more briefly. Right to repair. And right to repair is a hot topic. It can be controversial, but it's not only important, in large part, it's inevitable. And it will make independent repairers more important, and that may make OEMs and their dealer networks unhappy, but it's inevitable. And that will put more, that'll add importance to actually selling the OEM parts. So if you don't get the labor, if If you can't have a whole loaf of bread, can you have half a loaf? And if you can't have half a loaf, can you have a quarter loaf? So it becomes vital to sell the OEM parts to the actual service provider, whether that's a internal fleet maintenance center or an independent service operator. And in order to make sure that you're going to get that parts business, you're going to have to consider the CX, the customer experience of the buyer. And in turn, that's going to drive you to a need for a superior e-commerce platform, not just something that you slap together, but something that's got all the right pieces and is going to make people effective and comfortable. But if you're interested in knowing more about the impacts of right to repair and how that's evolving as we're running short of time, I suggest that you read the blog that I wrote on this topic. There's a version on the Mize website as well as the Fellows research website, or feel free to reach out to me after this webinar. The third megatrend on this slide is electrification. And I'll just hit some highlights. And again, like the other, if you have further questions, ask them at the end of the webinar or follow up later. So eventually, electrification can drive down parts consumption by 50 or 60%, and perhaps even as fast or faster than that 3 to 3.5% natural per annum growth that Michael mentioned in his introduction. So there's a theoretical possibility that electrification is going to wipe out a lot of parts growth and maybe even cause it to decline. However, remember a couple things. Hybrids don't count here because they've still got an ICE, an internal combustion engine. And it's going to take decades, even in the automotive sector, to replace the existing car park. And I'll point out here, as I said I would, that this applies primarily to automotive. It does apply worldwide, only secondarily to commercial truck, and less so in most other industries. So this is the last of the 5 of the 8 megatrends that we're going to cover. And the first one on this sheet, collision avoidance, primarily applies to automotive. So I'm going to try to go through it quickly because I realize some of you on the call are not in automotive. The current level of ADAS, or Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, it seems to be a unanimous belief that it could cut collisions in the next decade by 30% or so, and that level 5 autonomous vehicles may further reduce collisions by up to 90%. However, what most of those who study human behavior will point out is that this is likely to be mitigated by what's known as risk compensation. And that's the tendency for people to adjust their behavior in response to perceived risk levels. So we'll all remember that in NFL, they kept adding more safety in and more and more pads and helmets, and yet the players then did riskier and riskier things so that while injuries went down, they didn't go down nearly at the expected level. And so I'm going to skip over the sharing economy. Has a number of impacts, but it's not clear what will happen for service parts. Let's talk about marketplaces for a minute. So marketplaces are like Amazon and eBay, and they certainly get a tremendous amount of press, and fairly so. They're changing the world for many different items in e-commerce. But for OEM parts, it's not at all clear how far that will go, and I would argue perhaps not very far and not very fast. Their sweet spot is fast-moving parts, and it's really to the retail side of the business, and there are a number of reasons for this. And it's particularly popular when it is used by dealers for idle and overstock. So there's going to be an impact, but it's going to be complex and attenuated. Let's just take a minute on 3D printing. I remember, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, people saying that 3D printing would be highly disruptive to service and parts, but that really hasn't been the case because its sweet spot is high value, low volume, urgently needed parts where the functionality, durability, and safety is not lessened by producing the part locally. There are also some legal and licensing issues. And then finally, and I could have put this at the beginning, is the rise of e-commerce in general. So everyone is expecting more and more abilities to do things online, to place orders, and that is a mega trend that clearly impacts the parts and service business, with more and more people, for example, going ahead and setting up a service appointment with the dealership online and ordering more and more parts online. What I suggest for everyone on the call, if you're an OEM in particular, if you're a dealer, if you're a solutions parts developer, take a fresh look at your service parts solutions and ask yourself and your teams the following questions. Are you well positioned to start and or grow the e-commerce channels for your replacement parts? Can your current EPC or practical variants of that EPC facilitate effective parts e-commerce with fleets and independent repairers? And does your current path include a full set of seamless integrated parts and service apps? I would suggest that if your answers are not all yes, then that you should ask leading solution vendors to meet with you and share their visions, that you look to experts and thought leaders to craft strategic and tactical plans to get you from here to where you can be a winner in parts e-commerce. I would suggest that you stay engaged in webinars like this one, conferences, and other knowledge transfer opportunities. A final thought, thought leadership is key. The rate of change seems to be accelerating. Don't navigate these waters alone. Find the right technology partners to supply the insight and expertise needed for you to emerge as a winner as e-commerce sweeps across service parts. And on that, I say good luck.
Ted, thank you for sharing your insight and perspective. Now we will look at simplifying parts e-commerce to drive sales by Eric Marlan. Eric Marlan is the Senior Product Manager at Mize, responsible for developing the product roadmap, and today he will discuss how Mize's service parts management solution can simplify and improve parts sales in your company. Eric?
Yes, thank you, Michael. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you, Ted, for your presentation. Today I'm going to discuss simplifying parts e-commerce to help drive sales. You heard Ted discuss some of the key trends and what the impacts are. So now we'll review how to manage to these. People are used to e-commerce in their personal lives, right? We all know a simple way on how to order products and parts for your own personal life using Amazon and eBay, as Ted mentioned a few slides back. So how do we take that consumer experience over to parts for OEMs in order to simplify that parts e-commerce and to help drive the sales? So stay ahead of those third-party Amazons that are going to get into the market space or are already in the market space as that third-party competitor to you, making it easy for your consumers who are now ahead of the curve ahead of you on how they can handle and manage ordering parts. So how do we accomplish this? So we accomplish this by optimizing your service parts management. Today, we're going to focus on how each of these 5 core function requirements can help minimize the risk, simplify your e-commerce, and help drive sales. So to do this, we're using some of our own Mize Smart Block modules that will be discussed in the upcoming slides. So having that parts catalog with the correct illustrated parts, finding the right parts, being able to one-click add those parts to a shopping cart, being able to place those orders both online as well as mobile. We see mobile as a key factor if you're not doing mobile today and allowing for that. It's an avenue that you're missing out on sales potentially, and I'll go into that later. Parts inventory, being able to track the inventory across all the different locations, being able to locate those parts and integrate with all the warehouses, DMs, and 3PLs to make it very simplified. Parts return, making sure that all the right parts are in the right place and having the ability for having a system that can provide you with those reverse logistics. And then parts supports, obviously being able to manage a contact center to handle and resolve any questions or order issues. And I'll talk about later how that can get minimized, right, if the right part is being ordered for the right consumer at the first time out. So in order to augment what you potentially have today, you heard Ted discuss how partnering with a vendor can help provide the capabilities and flexibility of the right SaaS platform to meet your unique requirements and deliver that unique customer UX UI experience. Those are key to simplifying the e-commerce to drive sales for your parts. Having a single global modularized platform allows for meeting those current requirements as well as the ability to plan for future. From parts catalogs to orders to tracking to inventory, and like I mentioned on the last slide, mobile functionality, the different platforms on the right side we talk about, doesn't have to be web-based. It can be any platform that's supported. So the goal here is for all users, all stakeholders to have access to the same system, but have a roles-based access for what functionality that they have and what they can act upon. And having that multiple device support for laptops, tablets, native iOS, and Android is a key trend that if you're not doing those today across all the different platforms, you're missing out. Slide, we're going to focus on the top right corner, but growing aftermarket revenues obviously is more than just part sales. Having the right service plans for those parts and maintenance, offering subscriptions, being able to have things in place to help grow for upgrades. But from a service part, being able to sell more, reduce the returns that are coming back, boost your dealership productivity, and facilitate different price programs, all part of increasing sales for the service parts and any additional accessories and things that need to be sold. So why Optimize SPM? So having that online parts catalog 24/7, 7 days a week, and access to simplify the ordering process, even the payment side simplifying, helps to solve the challenges of parts e-commerce. Having the right parts at the right place for the repair, if you're sending someone out to go do the repair, or having that dealership have a vehicle in for those repair, making sure you have the right parts is key. How many times is a repair delayed due to not having the right parts available? So if you're not watching inventory and don't have a way to manage all of the availability to all the service levels, you're missing out and causing issues for your end consumers, forcing them to go elsewhere. So, how many parts are returned because they identified a wrong part? They ordered the wrong part, they waited for it, they got it, it wasn't the right part, they had to ship it back. There's a lot of cost and time involved in that, and one and done is kind of the new terminology nowadays that everybody wants to focus on. So having those right parts, to not be identified wrong on the first try is key. Ted even mentioned earlier about predictive part recommendations. So having a platform that can help identify additional parts, either based on error codes or based on additional service orders and work orders and parts that are being sold in key areas, or by zip code as an example, or by city, having a system that can help improve that forecasting accuracy to say, you bought these two parts, we see where the majority of customers that are buying those two parts also bought this third part of this accessory because they ended up having to come back and buy it anyway. So why not help them up front and upsell them on the additional parts, or at least offer to them the ability to purchase recommended parts from the solution. Storing excessive parts, right? Reducing excess inventory, right? Optimizing the SPM, service parts management, helps you reduce your overhead and helps inventory costs. How many times do you have parts just sitting out there and it's not optimized to know that those parts are selling quickly in a specific area or region, and maybe another area or region is selling that same part quicker, faster, then you need to optimize and move parts into the right locations as well. So part of the solution for parts management, the Mize Parts Catalog Smart Block enables your clients to automate that catalog creation, having, importing the correct images, having the bill of material part list from your engineering, all your back-end ERP system, and other sources for all stakeholders to be able to access. Using those service bombs to structure the catalogs, allowing for exporting those catalogs even out to different formats, such as PDFs, to be able to send out to other distribution sources that may not have had access to your catalogs today, to be able to upsell on parts. Publishing the part catalogs in multiple languages. If you're a global company and you're only selling and publishing in one language, you might be missing out because maybe the consumer would rather see it in the local language support to be able to help assist them find the right parts. Adding parts to a shopping cart with a single click, obviously simple, that customer experience, right? Checking out directly from a catalog to create an order, be able to purchase those parts that you're checking out. And on the back end side on the right here, ensuring that your suppliers also have access as a stakeholder to the solution for parts that do come back, parts that maybe you don't need anymore, parts that need to go back to the supplier themselves, so you can recoup some of your costs that maybe these are parts that are failing, or these are parts that are no longer required. So the benefit of going with a full parts management solution, right? Time saving in the creation and modifications of those parts catalogs, cost savings from eliminating a need for separate applications, have one central place to have all the parts catalogs, make it easier for the dealers to order the parts, make it easy for the consumers to order the parts, making it seamless, scalable, and connected on a cloud, obviously with affordable pricing allows you to scale up in your program as you grow down the road for future, as Ted was showing the slides, that time frame versus the number of parts and increasing things for down the road. And then being able to view all of the information about a product, putting in a VIN number as an example, and what we call a product 360 type of screen, giving you a historical information view of everything about that brand, that model, that category of product. Doesn't even have to be automotive. We're across the board in any industry. This type of solution, can be managed to help increase your sales. So when OEMs are successful in parts e-commerce, it improves that parts buyer's experience and ordering process, right? Buyers do require nowadays access to shop and order 24/7 by 365. There's no more waiting until the dealer opens up on Monday morning and I'm at work and I don't have time to get on the phone because I'm busy at work. I want to be able to order parts 24/7. Having access to, promotional pricing that you may have, that price matching that was discussed earlier, seeing, second lines of parts and things that I might not be thinking of, that when I buy a certain part, maybe I should be buying the kit to replace 3 other parts along with it. The examples that I'm showing here on the screen, for buyers, being able to view illustrations allows them to visually see and order parts and related parts, right? The buyer's more confident now by seeing actual images of the parts that they wish to order, and they're more likely to order the correct parts the first time out. So you don't have to go through that process of shipping a part, having to have it returned, and shipping a second part, or maybe not getting lucky and getting that second order because they now went and purchased the part somewhere else. So this also allows you to do targeted price promotions and why buy info by giving them additional information that the users can have to understand the best possible pricing that they can get from you to be able to increase sales from that perspective. So once you get beyond the parts catalog and being able to visually see parts, having an efficient order entry system that's fully integrated into those parts catalog allows for improvements across the full process for parts e-commerce. Having all the stakeholders having access to the same systems simplifies the solution overall that has to be maintained. Having those proper integrations improves the life cycle for growing your aftermarket part e-commerce in the future. And again, like I've been saying, having the correct part catalog allows for simplified parts ordering for all of the stakeholders to be able to get the right part the very first time. So having a platform that allows for efficient and simple UX UI design, such as a simple shopping cart here, allows for a quick experience for any stakeholder to be able to quickly check out, see the number of parts that they want, and be able to place orders. They can add parts with a single click and quickly check out to place that order. So mobilizing your service technicians provides them now with quick access, not only for planning and preparing and performing their jobs, but why not take advantage of opening it up to take payments? And more importantly, they're your front line to the customer. So giving them the ability to upsell and cross-sell, since they're the ones at that front line talking to your customers. Not so much a dealership where you bring a car in and you wait in the waiting room, but in other industries where you go out on site and you send technicians out in the field, while they're there, let them have access to all of those parts catalogs. Let them have access to show the consumer these are additional parts that should be recommended and should be replaced and repaired at the same time. Otherwise, I'm going to have to come back again soon to do this job again. Upselling them on service plans or giving them quotes. Wait, we'll go ahead and give you a quote today. If you want to sign off on the quote and give us a credit card, allowing them to take e-commerce payments while out in the field as a mobile technician is a lot of revenue that you're missing out on with your frontline point of contact that's out in the field. So we see a lot of customers getting tremendous value in that. Not only that, but enabling the technicians with access to the mobile applications allow them to see not only what parts are available in their inventory for an HVAC industry, as an example, a truck technician has a truck full of parts, they're going to go out on site and manage to repairing an AC system at a house and seeing what inventory that I have on my truck before I even do a truck roll out to go and manage to the service work order is very key to making sure that I can ensure that I have the correct parts for that service order before I even go out there, so I don't have to go back again, set up a second appointment, disrupt the consumer a second time to actually be able to finish the job. And then taking advantage of the power of the mobile devices. We all know, we use our phones daily, that scanning is a simple process for barcodes or QR codes. Being able to take advantage of the apps to be able to scan a part, as an example, to place it on an order, pull a part off the truck and that's being recommended and do a service quote to them to quote them on a price on it. Again, upselling from finding the right parts in the catalog, making sure that before I go out there on site that my truck has the proper inventory. So when I do get there, I can one and done and the job is completed. Quick, fast, consumers happy, and then they'll do more business with you next time as needed. So not only just ordering parts and showing them parts and doing quotes, but enabling those technicians with access to the mobile app also allows for quick access for them to view, track, and trace the status of all of those orders, right? This will increase, again, your technicians' efficiencies while they're performing their tasks. Even opening up these capabilities and functions to your end consumers in a customer portal allows them a one-stop shop to go online and track parts that are coming, track service technician orders that are coming out to the house to repair something, track that dealership when I took my car and I had to leave it there for 3 days to get warranty work done on it. So I'll know I can go online and be able to manage to that as well. Most consumers don't like downloading additional mobile apps per se as a native mobile app, but allowing your technicians that do go out in the field capabilities for that and extending your platforms out. If you're not doing this today, you're behind the times, and giving all of that power in the hands of your technicians is really key in allowing them to help perform their tasks and upsell things to grow your revenue. So inventory management, this is a full life cycle process. Hopefully by now you can see why optimizing your entire parts inventory management life cycle allows for improvements to help grow those aftermarket sales. Reduce your inventory, being able to view actionable insights for what parts are being used and what inventories are high, what inventories are low. Seamlessly integrating all of your orders to your back-end systems and improving that customer experience will all lead to first-time fix rates and satisfied customers on the backside. So here's just some examples of some actionable insights where you can help see trends for sales growth and attachment rates and renewal rates for different types of contracts and parts programs, the different channels, the different customers, and opportunities to be able to upsell them. So any kind of trends and reporting and analytics, if you don't have capabilities of whatever platform you're on today to be able to see these type of analytics, to see the health of the system on the what you're doing for parts and ordering and sales, you're missing out on key ways to help manage to where you need to go with the solution. So the next slide gets into a couple of case studies that we thought we would touch on real quick. So this first customer, Takeuchi here, the key item to point out here is today their challenges was having older disparate systems for each and every dealer network and not having a system that was flexible enough of an existing system for being able to edit things and being across the board, making it simple for parts to be ordered. So the Mize platform allowed their dealers to quickly search, view, and with that single click, place an order for parts that they need. So they see the images, they know they're ordering the right parts, they're putting in part numbers, they're scanning in parts, they're able to put in some VIN numbers, and by product configuration, see just the parts that are only available in the bill of material structure that are specifically for that product that they're looking to order. So it takes away from having to order wrong parts or looking at millions of parts versus the 10 parts that I need to specifically for what I'm filtering on to search on. So on the back end now, they have one centralized platform that's scalable, to manage all of their parts catalog and even their knowledge content, user guides, manuals, frequently asked questions, special bulletins about products and parts to help them make better decisions on what needs to be purchased or not. So the Mize Product 360 obviously allows them viewing of all that information in a single screen. When a customer does call up, you still get those calls, like Ted mentioned earlier, you're not going to get it down 100%. So they can quickly put in a VIN number or a serial number or a customer name or phone number, pull up all the information about those products and be able to view and click on add parts to a shopping cart and check out, even take payment over the phone if the consumer's willing to give credit cards as examples. So while they're calling you, you want to be able to quickly see and act upon and sell parts to them. So Weber, they make all of the barbecue grills that we all sit around on Sunday afternoons and grill out in their backyards globally, right? So they had challenges such as, again, as older legacy systems that were costly to maintain and did not provide that functionality to help drive their sales and being able to get those right parts ordered from the service bonds, and the dates and things of the products that they had out in their parts catalog were just old and antiquated. Those were their pain points. So from a solution perspective, they had a challenge to simplify the process. They were too complex in their processes and made it too hard. So utilizing the Mize platform, they've achieved improvements with all their service experience. They've simplified all their workflows, and this not only allowed for lowering costs, but allowing for improved the experience for those stakeholders when they do want to go and find those right parts and be able to buy those right parts again 24/7, being able to look it up online easily and quickly, single click, put them in a shopping cart, and be able to order the parts that they needed. So I want to thank you for allowing me the time today to present how to simplify your parts e-commerce to help drive the sales today. So I'm now going to hand the webinar back over to Michael. Michael?
Eric, thank you for your presentation. Now you've seen some of the technologies and applications that your companies can use to improve parts sales. We want to share with you some of the benchmarks that companies can achieve when they implement these types of tools. So here we have a number of parameters that we've been helping companies track. Well, the first of these is percent of service events that require a part. So typically, we found that on average, 49% of the time, a service event requires a part. So it might be a repair activity or maintenance activity. And that's going to be consistent whether you have these tools and applications in place or not. At least half of the time that you have a service event, maintenance, or repair issue, it's going to need a part. Another parameter that companies track is first-time fix rate. And this measures the percentage of the time that there is a service event and it can be resolved correctly the first time. And that's often the result of having the right parts and skills at the point of service. On average, the first time fix rate across all industries is 77%. So almost 3/4 of the times, the technician can resolve the problem right the first time. But through putting in best practices and the right technologies and applications, companies are able to increase that to 88% or more. So in the right-hand column, what I've been reading off is the benchmark target, something that you should strive to achieve and can achieve through putting in the right processes and systems and applications. A third parameter we want to share with you is the percentage of requests that are broken due to lack of parts. In other words, the percentage of time that a part is needed. Let me rephrase that. Percentage of time on service calls or service events where a part is needed but it's not available, so the event needs to be put on hold or broken or delayed because there wasn't a part available. So on average across all industries, that's about 26% or 1 in 4 times this happens. But the benchmark target to strive for and that's achievable through the right processes and technologies is 14%. So companies can reduce this parameter in half by having the right processes and applications in place. And lastly, one of the parameters we were going to share with you today is inventory fill rate. So on average across all industries is about 52%. What is inventory fill rate? That's the percentage of time that a part is needed and it can be found available that same day in one of the inventories, whether it's a local inventory, regional inventory, or nationwide inventory warehouse. So that's half the time, but through the right applications and processes and procedures, companies can achieve a benchmark target of 95% or better. So we hope this has educated you on what's possible through implementing the right type of technology and processes. And with that, we wanted to make an offer to you. We wanted to share with you the opportunity to pilot our solution. We're offering a 30-day free pilot of our parts catalog and SPM solution. It'll give you an opportunity to get a proof of concept, and we can do this very rapidly. So if you're interested in this, you could call us at the number listed here or email us at this email address, and you will all be receiving a copy of this presentation, so don't worry if you haven't had a chance to write this information down. And we also wanted to remind you that Mize was named a major player in the IDC market report for service parts management. So with that behind us, we will now open for questions from the audience. Okay, we have our first question, and this one is for Ted. Ted, specifying parts is hard to do accurately all the time. Why should an OEM or dealer trust parts e-commerce?
Well, that's a great question, and that's certainly been a major factor in holding back the rate at which the time at which e-commerce became more popular, and for various OEMs for getting it out. But with good parts catalog authoring from a trusted technology partner, combined with a superior EPC platform, and then potentially bringing in service and warranty data to let you ask those sort of bigger questions for a particular service procedure. What are all the parts? Those issues that were critical blockers in the past are now fading away. So I think what we have is a tremendous advance in technology, particularly over the last 10 years, that has really changed the game for part specification.
Okay, thanks, Ted. Another question we have here is, are you seeing these trends developing in the marketplace? We are operating across auto, plant, agri, truck, etc., and we see the solution as a preferred solution, as most dealers don't have an e-commerce for their parts. So I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit.
Certainly, automotive has been very active. It's been very visibly active on the retail side. There have been articles in Automotive News about the progress that a number of firms, Revolution Parts has made, Simple Part, Amazon, eBay Motors. But over on the wholesale side, things have been quieter, but we're seeing really quite a surge of activity. And I've been talking to a few people in cross-industry segments just in this last week preparing for this webinar, and they're indicating as well that they're finding that they can provide parts catalogs and ordering capabilities online, and so that the trend is exactly the growth of this. And as I said in the previous question, it's a matter of getting the part specification side right. So yes,
well,
go ahead.
To add to that too, on what you said, Ted, right? Even if you don't have full part catalogs, if you have bill of material item list of parts, right, it's still a step in the right direction, to have and eventually get to full parts catalog. But any additional steps that you do from today going forward to make the journey for your end customers an easier experience is going to help overall with sales in the right direction. So.
Absolutely. If you have the bill of material and you can put the original part number, which won't probably be correct anymore, in, the dealer then at least can start with that and quickly find out what's the current replacement part. So this whole digital communication, digital marketing is really changing everything and dramatically improving the customer experience.
Eric, this next question is for you. Does Mize offer a complete portal solution that integrates with existing CRM software?
And the answer is absolutely yes. So we have several different portals that we can offer to any customer out there, depending on their role and what they're going to be doing and functioning within the platforms themselves. And we have what we call CX Connect. We've predefined integrations to most of the major players in the market space for SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, even logistic providers for the tracking and shipment like FedEx, UPS, DHL. We've predefined all those, and the value to you in that is dramatically reducing your cost for you to be able to manage each and every one of those integrations where let the platform with Mize be able to handle managing all of those for you and give you that one central platform for everybody to come into as stakeholders. And any and all those back-end integrations you need to have, it'll be seamless to your end customers on the front end using the platform.
Okay, great. So we have time for 2 more questions. Then we'll announce the winners of the headphones, wireless headphones. Eric, this question looks like it's also for you too. For parts catalog, do you use OEM part number format?
Yeah, so that's going to vary, right? So the answer is yes. We have some clients that use the OEM part numbers, but we do also allow for part substitute because we know suppliers have their own part numbers, or even dealers have their own part numbers that they want to use. So we've already accounted for that within the system to be able to map to and manage substitutes on part numbers. So you can search one number or the other, and the system will automatically find the correct part for you to place the order appropriately. Even substitutes for old numbers that maybe there might be 2 left in the warehouse. Let's go ahead and take those out of inventory and get rid of those first before you start using the new number or a new part number that might be coming out. So all of that functionality is already built in out of the box with the the Mize platform.
This last question is for both you and Ted. We'll start with Ted. The question is, won't buyers order the wrong parts via e-commerce? That's a concern.
Yeah, so that's a very valid concern, and I think there are a couple of considerations. Probably the most important one is I did talk to you guys in the presentation about making this a collaborative process. So I know that in automotive, the standard and best procedure is for the dealer to validate the parts order. So they take the VIN and they take a look at the parts. In fact, this can actually be done in the e-commerce software, where it will say for this part type, let's say it's a water pump, did the number that was given, is that the part and the only part of that type, the water pump, that will fit in that vehicle. So there are new tools out that will make that process a lot simpler. And if that doesn't work, you should use a manual process to make it collaborative. You validate the part, and at the same time, you might find that maybe they should also order the bracket or another part. Eric?
Yeah, so I think I touched on this one during my slides of examples where I was showing the buyers viewing illustrations, right? So visually, instead of looking at a 20-digit part number that can be one of a million parts, having a visual on it with your part catalog, even getting into the 3D where I can spin the 3D part around or set of component parts and expand them out to see the exact part of what I'm really looking at, possibly ordering for my brand model that I'm looking up. Those visuals are key to ensuring that the buyer's more confident in seeing, hey, I'm not ordering an O-ring when I should be buying a bracket, or that bracket may need 2 bolts and 2 O-rings to bolt it on that they're recommending that you purchase also. So again, that upsell again within your catalog to not only give the visuals, but to potentially say you should replace those bolts at the same time, selling more parts, more revenue, making more money. All of that combined together is going to, make that customer journey better, and making sure that one and done, they don't order the wrong parts by having all those visuals.
Okay, thanks, Eric and Ted. That's all the time we have for questions. We will follow up after this webinar on any remaining open questions. But before I leave, I want to tell you about an upcoming event and announce the winners of the Aftershocks. Hope you can join us at Field Service Palm Springs 2020. That will be held April 21st to 24th in Palm Desert. And if you'd like to learn more, you can visit our website and register. And without further ado, drum roll please, the winners of our Aftershocks wireless headphones. And by the way, Aftershocks recently launched our customer portal and warranty solutions. So they launched the customer portal and warranty solutions powered by Mize. And so, drum roll, please. The winners are Ken Zagroba from Navistar and Stephanie Swigler from Mercedes-Benz. We'll be sending you an email letting you know how you can claim your headphones. And I want to thank our presenters today, and I hope all our attendees found the webinar informative and useful to you and your company. As a registered attendee, you will receive an email with a link to the recording and presentations. Thank you all for attending. That concludes the webinar for today.